Your personal development matters the most from where you are right now. Bring your career into new heights with our affordable and quality in-demand virtual training programs designed just for you. Give your career a boost with a course or a training from Stellar Training Consultancy Services and join thousands of professionals from different walks of life in a learning and development session that fascinates you, motivates you, challenges you to learn new things that you'll use forever in a career you'll love. Find the right training for you today here at Stellar Training Consultancy Services, bringing excellence to professionals.
You found us! If you're watching this, you might be looking for training certifications, workshops, webinars, or conferences that is affordable, accessible, reliable, and commendable. Stellar Training Consultancy Services can help you with your certification needs. From leadership and administrative trainings to general topics, we got it all here. With partners being served such as Department of Health, Philippine Coast Guard, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Trade Industry, and many more organizations and agencies. There's no more reliable provider than STCS. So hurry, send us a message, and find excellence with STCS.
Ama namin, pakinggan mo po ang pagtawag namin sa iyong banal na pangalan. Basbasan mo po ang aming pagtitipon at kami kaluguran mo sa araw na ito. Pagyamanin mo po, Panginoon, at maging nakaayon sa iyong kalooban ang aming pagkikita-kita mula sa simula hanggang katapusan. Masalamin nawa namin ang layunin mong dakila sa aming buhay at may sagawa namin ngayon ang aming mga gawain na may kabutihan at pag-ibig sa aming kapwa. Kami po'y naninikluhod sa iyong harapan na kami iyong patnubayan at iwaksi sa aming kaisipan ang anumang masasamang kaisipan, inggit at pakikipag-alit sa aming mga kasama. Bigyan mo kami ng sapat na lakas at katalinuhan upang maibahagi naman namin ang aming makakaya sa aming mga kasama sa pagtitipon na ito. Panalangin namin ang lahat ng ito sa pangalan ng iyong bugtong na anak na si Jesus. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, teras ng sinananan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang pinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit mo bangaw, ay hinatang tulakawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di maghihingi. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsingka, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Can you hear and see me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, ma'am. Santos. Ma'am, is this Laymar?
Laymar, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I hear you po.
Thank you for your response, ma'am. And of course, for those of you who gave me virtual thumbs up. Okay, my name is Rio Fernandez. Allow me to introduce myself. I'll be your training specialist for tonight. And I welcome you all to your training on effective supervision techniques. On behalf of the SCCS team, I'd like to thank every one of you for choosing us as your training provider. So before we begin, I'd like to ask how you are tonight. Can you give me at least a one word to describe how you are tonight or how your day went? Let's start with Ma'am Glenda. Hello po, Ma'am Glenda. Good evening.
Good evening po.
So how was your day po? Or how very rainy from Sir.
Yes, worried for the storm.
Also, Ma'am Glenda is experiencing a rainy evening. Thank you po, Ma'am Glenda and Sir Cesar. How about Ma'am Laymar?
Ano din po, maulan, nagpe-prepare kasi nga walang pasok tomorrow. In-announce na walang pasok tomorrow sa office. So, nagpe-prepare lang po, ready lang para sa rainy season.
Okay, I hope every one of you are safe in your respective homes, and thank you for sharing how your day went. Ma'am, Miss Anna says it's a warm evening for her. So, Sir or Ma'am Chris says it's also a rainy evening for her. Okay, thank you, Sir Joselito. Most of you, actually are experiencing an awful weather tonight. So hopefully it wouldn't be a hindrance to an interactive discussion that hopefully we'll be having this evening. So, once again, I welcome you all to your training on effective supervision techniques for managers. Here are the training rules. If you can, as much as you can, please turn on your camera for the first 20 minutes. This is for the attendance. Wear proper clothing. Be attentive and interactive during the discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to write it here in the chat box, or you may make use of your microphone. But before doing so, please raise your virtual hand. Yeah, and you can click more or the menu, and you'll find reactions, and then you can raise your hand. And after raising your hand, you can also lower it down. And please turn your microphones off if you're not the one who is speaking para hindi po tayo magsabay-sabay at magkaintindihan po. So since we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different opinions, let us also respect everyone. Moving on, here are your intended learning outcomes for tonight. By the end of this session, you are expected to learn supervision techniques that would help the organization to become more successful. You will also be able to understand the factors that affect the span of supervision. You'll also be able to differentiate and realize different supervision styles and to recognize which of these styles can be helpful in certain situations. Lastly, you'll be able to strategize weakness into strength in supervision, learn strategic ways for supervision and its application to your organization or to the organization which you belong to in general. And before we delve right into a deeper discussion on the techniques that we have to learn or that we have to acquire, I invite you all to watch a short video with me. So later on, perhaps I'll be asking some of the participants for some insights about the video. Let's begin. Oh, hold on. I'll have to adjust the volume so you can.
Okay, come on, everyone, we're behind schedule. You know what's gotta be done. Move it, move it, move it. Hey, you there, pick up the pace. You're falling behind. Come on, let's go. Everyone, pull together. We've got a rescue on our hands. You there. Here we go.
Okay, that was just a really short video. So let me ask what are your thoughts about the video that you have watched? I hope hindi naglag or there wasn't any technical difficulty on your part. Let's ask Ma'am Rona about her thoughts on the video. Okay, you may also communicate with us here in the chat box. The Power of Unity Teamwork by Sir Randy. Professor Norberto says he can sense the power or the essence of unity. Ma'am Christina says she has witnessed the value of teamwork. Ma'am Robelyn as well, and Ma'am Rona. So most of your answers have um, manifested the essence of teamwork and importance of great supervision. Yun, by Sir Leo. Teamwork by Ma'am Renante. In Unity, there is strength by Sir Joselito. It's not just about traveling in groups, but cooperation by Sir Christian. Thank you so much. And teamwork by Miss Ma'am Lamer. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. I would just like to highlight the answer of Sir Leo. He said from the video, he was able to learn the essence of teamwork and the importance of great supervision. Kasi as you have witnessed, before the team moved into a certain direction or followed the instruction, they were given what to do. They were able to have the instruction or receive instruction from a certain leader or supervisor. Yeah. Ma'am Jocelyn also says teamwork makes a great work. Also, a teamwork needs a good supervision. So, in supervision, however, it's not only all positive, right? All experiences are not all positive experiences. A lot are struggles and difficulties. So, let me ask you, what are your greatest struggles, or what is your greatest struggle in supervising your subordinates? You can send a message here in the chat box. Emotions. Managing emotions. Is this what you mean, Sir Christian? I see. So you have a difficulty in managing your emotions in times of difficulties or challenges, as well as handling the outburst of emotions of your team members. Yeah, thank you po. Okay, really, that's evident. Another is communication. There's Ma'am Roblin also expressed the difficulty in communication with his or her subordinates. Personality, of course. We come across different personalities every now and then. And for every personality, of course, we also have to adjust our way of supervising. And that can be very draining and exhausting for the supervisors. Thank you so much for your responses. So, what exactly are the ways to cope with these challenges? So, we'll be talking about the ways to overcome your challenges later on and strategize ways for us to really get to the bottom of how it means or what it means to be a good supervisor, to be a very helpful supervisor. Another is from Edward Perez. He says toxic subordinates. And we understand your situation, sir. Thank you for communicating it with us. Sir Andy says attitude of every individual, just like Ma'am Arlene, the personality, right, Sir Andy? Hard-headed workers not following company policy. I see. Okay, also with the personality and attitude problem. That means the behavior problem. So, how would you control the professional behavior and manage them? Caesar says others are not doing their part. Passive employees who would just nod their heads, but during questioning, they'd say, "You didn't say that. Di mo naman sinabi yan. Wala kami natanggap na instruction." Okay, individual differences by Sir Randy. Attitude towards work and ethics, work ethics by Ma'am Rona. Okay, thank you everyone. I'll be sure to take note of that, and hopefully we'll be able to go through the ways on how to overcome the challenges that you might have encountered or that you are currently encountering or experiencing in the workplace. Okay, along the way, we'll be able to answer or discuss how to overcome them. But first, let's start with the introduction to supervision techniques. Okay, I have here a video for you to ponder upon, and I hope you would watch the whole video. It's just a short video. We're not gonna finish the whole 1 minute and 30 seconds. So 1 minute is okay. Okay, thanks everyone for listening in and watching the video together with me. So, as a supervisor, leadership can be symbolized as an orchestra. This is the Filipino American Orchestra, by the way. And I want to ask you something before we begin our discussion. In an orchestra, you can symbolize it as a form of leadership, but in the organization, there are a lot of leaders, right? We have the senior leaders, we have the managers, we also have the supervisor. So in the orchestra, who do you think is the senior leader? The CEO, the director? You can send your message, your answers here in the chat box. Thank you. The maestro, the conductor, Miss Jocelyn. Sir Caesar, Sir Leo, also is the composer, the maestro. Okay, thank you everyone. I guess most of your answers would count to the conductor. Thank you so much. But I would just like to highlight the answer of Ma'am Anna. Yeah, Miss Anna. She said composer or the maestro. Most of your answers would count to the conductor, but the senior or the director, the CEO here, metaphorically speaking, would be the composer. Composer of the song, the one who arranged the song. So in leadership, in the organization, the composer or the director would have to set the vision and the overall strategy of our goals, our objectives, and the mission of the whole organization. The goals, the vision. That's the job of the director and the CEO, right? What about the manager? Who's the manager in the orchestra? Let's see some of your answers. Ayun. The conductor. Exactly, everyone. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. That's it. The conductor is the manager, metaphorically speaking. So the manager would take the vision from the director and make sure that that vision is coordinated to the supervisor. So basically, the manager would collaboratively, hand in hand, coordinate with the supervisor to make everything work and to make the vision possible. So who then is the supervisor in the orchestra? So the organization can be an orchestra. There's leadership there. And also in the leadership category, we have the supervisor, right? So here, the supervisor would be the leader, the instrument leader. As you can recall, in the orchestra, we have a lead violinist, lead pianist, and lead oboist, and so on. The list goes on. So sila yung supervisors ng orchestra. Kasi from the coordination of the manager, ang frontline, nandun si supervisor. And the supervisor would make sure that everything's going well in terms of the strategies, make sure na that employee is doing well. So the supervisor would be in charge with regular training. So kapag merong new tasks, there should be a new training. But what if the task would switch? So the supervisor is also responsible for a refresher training during that. Okay, so once again, responsible for the vision and mission would be the senior leader, the director, the one who collaborates with the supervisor, and the one who makes sure that the vision is made possible would be the manager or the conductor. And the supervisor would be in the front line of all of everything, making sure that in reality the vision is possible through little ways of, let's say, customer service and the process of delivering the service and more. Okay, let's talk about supervision this time. Supervision means instructing, generally guiding, monitoring, and observing the first line employees or workers while they are performing jobs in the organization. It refers to the activities at the workplace in which a manager oversees the activities and responsibilities of employees. He manages. So the supervisor during the training can have intermittent training and instruction. Also, in intermittent, it means the employee have already done a task, but not all the time. So the supervisor is there to be with the employee from time to time. And also, the supervisor can have an intermittent supervision with new employees, not only old or existing employees. Supervision is defined as a two-way dynamic and social process undertaken for a specific purpose of fulfillment of organizational goals by striving to maintain the required quality of performance through constantly supporting and assisting the worker to perform their best. How often is constantly? Okay, so the constant support is necessary, and it means you will have to be present from time to time depending on the level of expertise of the employees. So how often is constantly? It depends on the level of expertise of the employees. If magaling na sila, then naturally, konti lang yung time mo for them because they have done the job well, maintenance na lang. Yan, of high performance. But if you think na kailangan talaga nila ng intensive help, then you will have to be with them in a longer time. Supervision has been defined as a cooperative relationship between the leader and one or more person to accomplish a particular job. So we'll be talking about how to deal with this relationship later on as we go along with our discussion. What are the factors influencing the span of supervision? Here are the factors. There are a number of them, and we'll be dissecting each of them. First would be the capacity and ability of the executive. The characteristics and abilities such as leadership, administrative capabilities, ability to communicate, to judge, to listen, to guide and inspire, physical vigor, etc., differ from person to person. A person having better abilities can manage effectively a large number of subordinates as compared to the one who has lesser capabilities. So, if you are a supervisor, you're the one who is leading a certain team, then of course you have to strive for expertise and you'll have to acquire as many skill sets as possible because a lot of people would depend on you. And it would be better if you can supervise a lot of groups with different talents and capabilities rather than just focusing on one group that may or may not have or need the skills that you have. Kasi may ibang group na mas magaling pa sa supervisor, right? Members mas magaling sa supervisor. So, it's the responsibility of the supervisor to really make it happen na hindi naman claim na mas magaling siya dapat sa employees or subordinates niya. But at least to help them, that supervisor needs to acquire a lot of knowledge, yan, a huge amount of knowledge on certain technicalities, right? So, laging mag-attend ng workshops, seminars, and refresher training, especially with the policies and rules, guidelines ng company. Another is competence and training of subordinates. Subordinates who are skilled, efficient, knowledgeable, trained, and competent require less supervision. And therefore, the supervisor may have a wider span in such cases as compared to inexperienced and untrained subordinates who need greater supervision. So of course you would be able to you'll be able to do a lot of things if your subordinates are actually exceptional people, if they're good in what they do, and if they stay in focus, also if they're highly competent individuals. So what you'll have to be doing in this case is still and not ignore them kasi magaling na sila, right? So there is also another type of supervision that you can do for these exceptional and competent employees, right? So you can basically have a periodic type of training for them. Periodic means you wouldn't ignore them kasi magaling na sila, but you would still make time for them to assist them, make them know that you are present for them, that you're there for them, that you are not going to leave everything on their hands and shoulders, right? So also they would feel more inspired to do their job well because they know that their supervisor would be there for them when they need the supervisor. Okay, nature and importance of work to be supervised is another factor that influences the span of supervision. The work involving routine, repetitive, unskilled, and standardized operations will not call much attention and time on the part of the supervisor. As such, the supervisor at the lower levels of the organization can supervise the work of a large number of subordinates. Okay, so how do you delegate your tasks? Do you always do everything on your own? Or do you also give importance to the talents of your subordinates? So if you allow them to operate on the lower level and train them to be supervisors in the making, then that is a good nature in the workplace, right? You'd be also giving them a chance to work on their leadership skills. The capacity of a person to supervise and control a large number of persons is also limited on account of time available at his disposal to supervise them. So, as much as possible, it would be great to be able to handle a lot of groups, a lot of teams, because that would show how competent you are. You'd be able to show that you are doing your best and that you have a high performance. But is it possible, considering the time that you have, or you will have to sacrifice some of your personal time to be able to do it? The span of control would be generally narrow at the higher levels of management because top managers have to spend their major time on planning, organizing, directing, and controlling, and the time available at their disposal for supervision will be lesser. So, mababawasan yung time natin with our subordinates because we are very concerned with how we plan, organize things, making the vision of the company possible. So, the best way to still be in contact with our subordinates is to once again know your priorities as a supervisor, because you are a supervisor. Your main task is not only to plan and organize, that's the manager's task. As a supervisor, you are to make sure that your employees are doing well, getting the best support system that they need, and that they are all competent in the job. So you'll have to basically train them when they need a refresher training. Degrees of decentralization and extent of delegation. If a manager clearly delegates authority to undertake a well defined task, a well trained subordinate can do it with a minimum of supervisor's time and attention. As such, the span could be wide. So if you, as I've said earlier, train someone to be a supervisor in the making, that person can also help you in training and helping the other members of the group. So mababawasan yung task mo as a supervisor. Although it is ideal, it is certainly possible in the workplace if you assess, give time in assessing and evaluating your subordinates kung sino yung mga possible na pwedeng sumunod sa'yo as a supervisor. Kung sino yung nakikitaan mo ng potential to be a leader. Yan. When we talk of leadership naman, hindi naman siya about just being a director, a manager, supervisor. Leaders are everywhere in the company. Leadership naman is not a position, right? It's a choice. And more than that, it's also a skill. So a lot of people in our organization are leaders. So try to evaluate and assess kung sino dun yung mapagbibigyan mo or mapagkakatiwalaan mo ng task as a supervisor. Effectiveness of communication system. Earlier, you have made mention that somehow it's a struggle for you to communicate with them and for them to communicate with you as well, especially mga new employees. When you ask them, alam ba nila to, alam mo ba paano to? Meron ka bang experience nito? Most of them would say yes, right? But that's a close-ended question. So, for you to really communicate with them, ask them open-ended questions. Instead of saying, "Do you know how to do this? Do you have experience on this?" They can answer yes or no and then they walk away, right? Kasi nahirapan sila, maybe they're very self-conscious and they may have a hard time communicating na nahihirapan din sila, or it's also novel for them. So, open-ended questions. Can you tell me how to do this? How do you do this exactly? Can you tell me the process? Yan. Can you show me how it's done? The span of supervision is also influenced by the effectiveness of the communication system in the organization. Faulty communication puts a heavy burden on managers' time and reduces the span of control. So basically, if there's a glitch in the communication process, it would be a burden not only for the manager, the supervisor, but also on the part of the employees, and most especially in customer service, because we wouldn't be able to deliver what we are supposed to deliver to our clients if merong mali sa communication process, or if hindi nagkakaintindihan yung bawat department ng organization, much more yung members of a certain team. And certainly it's a challenge, but it it can be practiced in our everyday experiences in the workplace. On the other hand, if the system of communication is effective, larger number of managerial levels will be preferred as the information can be transmitted easily. There are a lot of ways to do this. You can make use of a certain software that enables you, that enables you and the rest of the team to communicate better. You can also use an application for this, right? Um, some examples would be Slack. Messenger is quite difficult, probably Microsoft Teams, and make it an open communication for everyone, an application that would make them feel that they can express some of their concerns to you without being judged or without having a fear of judgment. So maybe you can send their inspirational quotes every now and then, every 2 p.m., every 3 p.m., make it very constant, and so that um, they would feel that they can trust you on some concerns without being reprimanded for everything. And so the communication process would certainly be better, and it would be stronger as well. Another is quality of planning. If plans and policies are clear and easily understandable, the task of supervision becomes easier and the span of management can be wider. So we would know if someone understands a certain task if that person can explain it simply, right? So that is our role as well as supervisors. When we give instructions, we simplify it so that it can be very clear and concise. It's understandable. So before we deliver it, of course, we'll have to review the instruction first. Effective planning helps to reduce frequent calls on the superior for explanation, instructions, and guidance, and thereby saves in time available at the disposal of the supervisor, enabling him to have a wider span. So of course, mas mapapabilis yung process, yung trabaho, yung task, madaling matapos kasi clear yung instruction. And therefore, the supervisor can do a lot of other things and tasks as well because natapos na nga yung ibang mga dapat gawin or KPIs. If all, another is degree of physical dispersion. If all persons to be supervised are located at the same place and within the direct supervision of the manager, he can supervise relatively more people as compared to the one who has to supervise people located at different places. So there's also the value of proximity. Are you currently in physical distance, in terms of physical distance, close with your subordinates or with the people that you manage? So if yung office mo medyo malayo sa kanila, then communication would certainly be difficult for both parties. So you really have to do something about that. This is something that you can raise to the management so that they would also be able to help you on this, right? Another is assistance of experts. Okay. The span of supervision may be wide, where the services of experts are available to the subordinate on various aspects of work. In case such services are not provided in the organization, the supervisor has to spend a lot of time in providing assistance to the workers himself, and as such, the span of control would be narrow. We are in a revolutionary era, one with a lot of things to learn about. We have to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So there are a lot of applications, tools that we have to learn from time to time. And although we are supervisors, we were once a prime during our time, sometimes we can be left behind because of the rapid change, especially in technology and in business, right? So we really have to evaluate our subordinates, find someone who is an expert and who have a heart to really share the expertise of his or her to the members of the team and to your other subordinates and to you as well. Control mechanism. The control procedures followed in an organization also influence the span of control. The use of objective standards enables a supervisor management by exception by providing quick information of deviations or variances. Control through personal supervision favors narrow span, while control through objective standards and reports favor wider span. So there are a lot of ways to express this in the workplace or to control the mechanism in the workplace. You, as a supervisor, can basically, for example, human decision making, right? You can delay a process, you can choose to delay a process, or you can help your team train them so that the process can be fastened, right? So that's one way of taking control of the mechanism in the workplace. You should also make sure that everything that you agree on, especially on how to do a task, should be acceptable by everyone. That's also one way of controlling the mechanism in your group or in the team that you are supervising. Another is dynamism or rate of change. Certain enterprises change much more rapidly than others. This rate of change determines the stability of policies and practices of an organization. The span of control tends to be narrow, where the policies and practices do not remain stable. So, all of us have our manuals, right? We all have our handbooks as well. And our contract also has some contracts that you have also have the policies and practices of the organization. So from time to time, because of the changing times and environment, we have to adapt kasi. So sometimes, just like the pandemic, we have to change some of the protocols. Meron dapat retrofitting rather. And sometimes it can be very daunting for others kasi nakakapagod, right? There are a lot of things that should be done because of the new change or the new normal as we call it. And what if hindi na reliable yung policy natin? Kasi from time to time, nagbabago siya. So we have to make sure that the rate of change is not too fast and not out of date. Yun. We have to make sure it's really a challenge na up to date pa rin tayo, but at the same time not too fast na our employees would be very tired and exhausted, na they cannot keep up. They are very stressed with the new policies from time to time. Meron na namang bago. So they have to be very informed of these changes right before it is implemented. They have to be consulted. And whose responsibility is that? Mainly the supervisor. Kasi nga, siya ang nasa frontline, siya ang pinaka-close in proximity in terms of professional relationship sa employees. So, the supervisor needs to make sure that they are informed of the changes that would happen in the company. Para hindi sila magulat. Uy, ay bago na naman. So, parang unreliable naman ang mga policies na to from time to time nagbabago, right? But if they are informed, they wouldn't be surprised at all. And they would understand how important it is for these policies to be implemented. Another is need for balance. According to Kuntz and O'Donnell, there is a limit in each managerial position to the number of persons an individual can effectively manage, but the exact number in each case will vary in accordance with the effect of underlying variable and their impact on the time requirements of effective managing. As I've said earlier, leaders are everywhere. A leader is someone who has a positive influence on his or her subordinates and the people he or she is around with. So it can be anyone, but not everyone can actually manage a huge number of people, right? So basically it depends on your personality, but you don't have to force yourself. You have to be honest na, okay, I can only manage a group of 10. I can only supervise a group of 10. So I need, if ever I would have to manage a group of 50 people, then I suggest that you provide me with an assistant manager or an assistant supervisor. Because as a professional, I know my limits in handling people and I wouldn't be able to give a hands-on supervision kapag sosobra na yung kailangan kong i-handle or kailangan kong i-manage na subordinates, right? So, first of all, you have to get to know yourself better. Ilan ba yung kaya mong i-manage? How many people can you handle well? How many people can you help produce high performance? So, if you know the answer to that, then you'll basically just have to communicate it with your senior manager or with the director to help you as well, because it will take a toll on your body and your mental health if you force yourself to handle a lot of people. Also, it would have a negative impact in the company kasi hindi mo matututukan yung iba, and most of the time probably baka may mga favoritism that would arise and unfair yun para sa iba, right? Kasi sa dami nila, possibly, you cannot look after all of them and their concerns. So there's a need for balance on this. Okay, let's have a writing up challenge. I guess the earlier discussion was a bit too heavy and serious. Let's try to reflect on our previous experiences this time. Please give at least 3 common good leadership traits you observed from your previous supervisors. Yeah. So I'll give you some time to think about it. You can base your answer on your current supervisor or in your previous supervisor. Wise. Thank you, Sir Lee. Sir June says professionalism, accountability, respect for others. Awesome. Strong personality. So, where's Sir Joselito? Good listener by Mom Roblin. And considerate by Sir Lee. And a good mentor by Sir Andy. Open-minded, professional, and respectful by Ma'am Jocelyn. Wow, I'm so glad that you were able to have an encounter with these amazing professionals who possess these qualities. Lead by example. So I'd like all of you to read the messages here in the chat box. Try to ponder upon the observation of the members of the plenary here. A supervisor that can pretend to know his work. Listener to others, subordinate suggestions, competent, empathic, humble, and mentor, compassionate, good example, fair and just, professional, mother figure. Okay, direct to the point. Nice. This is one unique point. Honest, yun, integrative, sensitive to the needs of personnel. Okay, communicator, considerate, fair, and just, self-aware. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So, I'd like to once again invite all of you to read the answers of the members of the plenary here in the chat box so that you can remind yourself about these qualities. After the webinar, it's certainly impossible to acquire all of these qualities right away, but at least for the week or for the month, strive to set a goal. By the end of the month, specifically, I would be the kind of supervisor who is approachable. That's the first month. Imagine if you set your whole year with one goal of quality for a month. September, by the end of October, I'd be approachable. By the end of November, I'll be a good listener. By the end of December, I would have respect for the opinions of others. So then you'd be able to embody the qualities of a supervisor that you are looking for in a supervisor. Okay, these are all great answers, everyone. So I hope you have learned a lot from the members or the participants, your co-participants this evening. Let's move on. It's already 7:56, so perhaps we can discuss more of this. And then later on, after this subtopic, we can have a short break. So before that, let's discuss styles of supervision. These are the things that you wrote here are the qualities of a good supervisor. But how exactly are we going to implement good supervision? Of course, we use our styles. Styles are different from strategies in a way that they are very personal. Strategies can just be from someone else. You adapted it because you find you find that it works for you, so you have adapted it. But style is more personal and it reflects your personality. So let's try to look at some of the styles as a supervisor and reflect on these styles as well. No style is better than another. So let's just try to identify your own style. Okay, let's start with this style: task centered supervising. Doing whatever it takes to get the job done. No matter what happens, no matter what difficulties you experience in your personal life, the job needs to get done. And that's just what's important. Task centered supervisor. It is a manager that focuses on the output and the manner in which task is performed. So the process is also important here as well as the product. But there's very little emotion when you are a task-centered supervisor. You can find yourself inconsiderate towards the problems of others, but you get the job done. And certainly you get incentives and raise probably because you always make it a point that the job gets done at the end of the day, no matter how difficult it was. Another style is employee centered supervising. Employee centered supervisors are supervisors who give and worth to the value of each employee he or she supervises. They are the supervisors who are interested in developing a cohesive work group and in ensuring employees are satisfied with their jobs. So, of course, if you are an employee centered supervisor, you would always ask how they are. From time to time, you wouldn't ask them, kumusta? Nagawa na ba yung work? Tapos na ba? Ilang oras mo ginawa? Ilan yung natapos mo today? You wouldn't ask these questions. You would ask how they are. Kumusta ka? Meron ka bang kailangan para matapos ang task? May gusto ka bang itanong so that you can continue with the task? Saan ka nahihirapan? I can help you with that. Just tap me or contact me. I am available during this time of the day from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Punta ka lang sa office ko. Employee-centered supervisor, very accommodating. Another is autocratic supervisor, also known as authoritarian leadership. It's a leadership style characterized by individual control over all decisions and little input from group members. Usually you wouldn't have a choice if you are in a centralized employment system, right? Very bureaucratic. Yung system is fixed and it's not easily bended based on the decision of the majority kasi centralized yung decision. The one from the top would be the one who should be followed. And so the supervisor also adapted that. Supervisor mo ako at hindi ka ang supervisor ko, ako ang masusunod. And this is what I have decided on, regardless of how you feel about it or what you think about it. It's not important. What's important is my decision because I am the one in position. This type of supervision is resorted to tackle indisciplined subordinates. If not abused naman, it can also work. Yan. Benevolent supervisor. Supervisor who provides individualized care in subordinates' work schedule and personal lives. Benevolent supervisors are those who create observable benefits, actions, or results for the common good. So these types of supervisors think less about the task and high performance, incentives, and getting the job done. What's important for them is that their employees can have a good work life balance, they can spend time with their family, they can still speak with their children and make sure that they can get their children to school or take care of their family. Also, kapag merong mga events like wedding or sometimes birthdays, if you have a benevolent supervisor, you can just ask permission and mag-send ka lang ng pictures or recorded video na patunay na pumunta ka talaga sa wedding. And they would accept it. They wouldn't mind because they're benevolent supervisors. Another is a democratic supervisor. This type of supervisor acts according to the mutual consent and discussion, or in other words, he consults subordinates in the process of decision making. So before implementing a policy, this type of supervisor would give evaluation sheets muna or kaya scales or rating sheets, or maybe this type of supervisor would check the suggestion box all the time, ask his or her employees about what should be done in a single task or in a project bago nila gawin, right? That supervisor would collate and collect all of the suggestions of his or her subordinates bago nila gawin ang isang certain task. And the majority would always win if you have a democratic supervisor. This is also known as participative or consultative supervision. Okay, those are the styles of supervision. Can you send here in the chat box which your style is, most probably as a supervisor? Or do you have a combination of both? So which style do you use as a supervisor? Democratic, Mr. June, Sir Andy is also democratic. Wow. Ma'am Arlene, once again, no style is better than another. Combination depending on the need. Exactly, Sir Joselito. Yan. Yan. Benevolent if time limited. Authoritarian. Oo nga, no. It depends on the situation, certainly. And as a supervisor, as a tenured supervisor, you would know which style is necessary for a certain situation. You cannot always be benevolent as a supervisor, and you cannot always be authoritarian as a supervisor. A combination would be the best one. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to the another subtopic. But before this, as I have promised, you'll have a health break for 10 minutes. So please be back by 8:16 p.m. Thank you so much and have a good break. everyone. I hope you are all back on your seats. Can you give me a thumbs up if you are? Sir Joselito is back. Welcome back, sir. Ma'am Anna, Sir Andy, Ma'am Christina. And okay. All right. Thank you so much for your responses, Sir Renatus, Sir Randy, Sir Christian, Ma'am Laymar. Okay, I guess most of you are back. Once again, welcome back. And thank you so much for your active participation during the first half of our webinar. So earlier we have discussed the definition, the process, the styles, and more of supervision. This time we'll talk about effective ways to supervise employees. Also, if you have questions during the discussion, please feel free to ask away or send a message here in the chat box. Okay, here are 9 strategic and effective ways to supervise. You can take a look at them, but we will all be discussing each of them to elaborate. Let's begin. First, be fair to everyone. This is easier said than done, but in order to do so, you'll have to treat each of your subordinates or staff fairly and respectfully. So if you give one major task to one employee or subordinates, you should also give one major task and delegate a major task, one that shows your utmost trust to that person, to all of your subordinates. So meron silang minor task, everyday tasks, daily KPIs, and all of them should also be given a chance to work on major tasks. Some people are by nature more likable than others, but as a supervisor, you have to avoid even the slightest hint of favoritism. Action speaks louder than words. Even though you don't praise one person all the time, but you always give major tasks to that person, leadership tasks to that person, and don't give it to all of the subordinates, then that is also another hint of favoritism already. You may have to be flexible in your leadership style for each of your subordinates. So you'll have to check the ISO standards in giving major tasks. One could be responsible for research, for making another for making compendium, another is for making manual, or another is revising some of the policies. So you can think of or base your major tasks from the ISO standards or from your accrediting unit and give a chance to all of your subordinates to work on these major tasks. Be fair and square. Thank you, Sir June Parado. Develop everyone. Everyone is unique. Each subordinate has his or her own strengths and weaknesses, so work on developing the abilities or the potentials of every employee. And you can only do so if you have a thorough assessment of each of your subordinates, right? You don't leave it up to the HR to do that because it's their job and it's part of the scope of their responsibility. In fact, it is one of your major tasks as a supervisor to do so, because how would you be able to develop what they need or their weaknesses if in the first place you don't know what they are? So you can, if you don't have really the time to evaluate them based on a pen and paper evaluation, you can do so by anecdotal records or observation. Don't overlook the need to provide any necessary resources and training needed by the employees to do the jobs. It really pays to ask them, what do you think are the trainings that you may need to work better in your position? So, pays to observe, but it also necessary to ask them because they have their self-evaluations as well. By doing so, they will perceive that you care for their well being. In return, they will be more respectful to you and hence work better. Of course, they will also give you a high evaluation. Also, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of Ma'am Eleanor Ang. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. Okay, let's move on. Know and like your subordinates. Learn the individual strengths and weaknesses of the people you supervise. This will aid you in assigning tasks on the basis of skills rather than at random. It will make them feel good working with you. It's not just about making them feel good about working with you. It's more than that really. It's about establishing a good connection and building a good professional relationship with your subordinate. And a lot of you have experienced this. That's why earlier you were able to give me the qualities of a good supervisor, because you have experienced encountering a supervisor who tried to get to know you better, who did not judge you for your mistakes, for your um, weaknesses. And in fact, that person truly strived to develop you and the team as well. So you already have an example. You can try to follow and adapt the strategies of that good supervisor, that highly competent supervisor, and combine it with the supervisory style that you already have for yourself. Compliment and recognize their hard work. Wow, good point. We'll get to that later on. Thank you so much, Ma'am Renante. Sir Renante. Okay. Show continuing interest in your subordinates. Show continuing concern in your subordinates by providing feedback on their performance regularly, not just at performance evaluation time. They certainly need your feedback, because although they may be doing their best, also they're producing high quality performance, some of them may still need guidance. Most of them, actually. So they will need your feedback. Is it um, should I continue doing this, or should I change something for the better? So they need your feedback from time to time. You can set a schedule for feedbacking, or you can also monitor them during the process of doing a project or accomplishing a task. Be honest whether they are doing well or bad. This means giving praise when they deserve it, and not reprimanding, but giving support when they're not doing well. Also, your feedback should be timely. Tsaka na lang, I'm sure that person will improve in time naman. How sure are you? Right? It's like you are making up a future that you don't really know could happen. So you really have to give timely feedback for that employee to have, let's say, an early intervention in terms of the mistakes that he or she has made. For example, late sa work or late sa meeting. So, hindi pwede na hintayin lang natin magbago siya on his or her own. You also have to give her feedback on that negative behavior, not on the subordinate, on their negative behavior only. And we should do so in private naman. Praise in public, reprimand, or talk about something that needs to be changed in private. Constructive criticism. Thank you so much, Miss Anna, Ma'am Anna, for reminding us of this. Yeah. Speaking of criticism, let us criticize with care. We are speaking with a human being here who also have emotions. So we have to be careful with our words, as we all know it can be a weapon. Be diplomatic whenever you criticize any aspects of an employee's performance. Once again, focus on the performance when you criticize, and don't add words, right? You're always late. You are an extremely tardy and lazy person. So that's already an attack towards the person, not on the performance anymore, right? Never jump to any judgment or conclusion. without thinking first the consequences of your critics. Otherwise, you would be tagged as a highly judgmental and inconsiderate supervisor who is absolutely not approachable at all. So be tactful to your subordinates at all the time. They will surely appreciate you for being a considerate leader and manager. Praise in public, criticize in private. Thank you so much, Sir June. Also, you have to be flexible. Flexibility is not only about surviving and thriving in new situations. Adaptable leaders can also implement new behaviors into old existing situations. I had some of the participants yesterday or last night take an take a test. It was a standardized test by Harvard Business Review, and it also touched a bit of adaptability. Yun. So you can help yourself in evaluating yourself through the tests available online. Make sure that it's standardized and credible. This also this allows leaders to express creativity in their work and find new ways to solve problems. So for you to be able to be flexible, of course you have to allow creativity, make space for creativity in the workplace. There are a lot of novel ways that you can adapt, especially from the millennials or the new generation of workers, and you can make use of these novel strategies to solve different problems. So also you can do this if you listen to them, if you're willing to listen to what they have to say or how they want to solve a problem. Give simple directions. Give simple but specific job directions at any time you assign a new task to a worker. Once again, if you assign a new task, you'll have to train intensively. But if you switch a task, then you will have to train intermittently already, or refresher training lang for them. Ibig sabihin, modified na yung training material, di na masyadong mataas, konti lang yung time, di ka na kailangan masyadong hands-on. Make things not so difficult in the eyes of your subordinates, even if it is in actuality a challenging task. You don't necessarily have to lie to them and say it's easy, even though it's not. But how do you do this? How do you make it easy even if it's difficult? You just set an example. You demonstrate it to them, the simplified version of how it should be done, instead of just making things up that it's easy even though it's not. So if it can be done in an easier way, you show them how it's done in an easier way. This will make them feel good and confident doing the jobs assigned to them. Also, they would be able to follow what you have showed them, and in turn provide the same quality of leadership and supervision to their subordinates. If naging supervisor na sila, you'll be a great role model for them. Defend your subordinates. Defend your subordinates against very clear unfair criticism, the one that's not constructive and very destructive towards them. Make them think and feel that you are a responsible or supportive leader, manager, or supervisor, because this would certainly increase retention rate and percentage in your company. Who would want to work in a working environment na iniiwan ka sa ere, right? When you have a problem, you get all the blame and no one's there for you to support you in any kind of way. So of course you would leave that company. But if you feel that someone is there for you who is willing to listen to your side, of course you would certainly be loyal towards that company and the supervisors. Okay, last one. Be a coach, not a general at war. Remember, you are at work, not at war. Hindi mo kalaban ang mga tao sa trabaho. Instead, they should be soldiers. I mean, they should be not soldiers, rather, they should be, it should be a collaborative working environment for all of you. And you should be able to support one another, no matter how idealistic it may sound. But this is the goal that you should be working towards to achieve the vision of the company. So be loyal to your subordinates as well as to the company, organization, and employer. Include subordinates in the decision-making process whenever possible. Yan. Di naman kailangan all the time that you would allow them to run the company already, right? Wala nang disiplina if you would always give them what they ask. So the policy should also be firm, but at the same time, they are heard if possible. You can also show your leadership qualities by working to obtain promotions, pay raises, and awards for deserving employees. Ayun. This is what your co-participants have shared earlier. Ma'am Sir Renante reminded us of the importance of giving recognition to their hard work and to the effort that they give in the company. So you're not only a coach, but you also take a look at how hard they try and how hard they work for the company, and you reward them for that. Of course, they would certainly appreciate it. A it would give a boost in their self-worth and self-esteem. Also, kahit tokens lang like certificates and more. Not necessarily financial talaga if hindi kaya, right? Okay, so before we end tonight's seminar and webinar, I'd like to ask you this question. How do you coach your team members? How do you mentor them? Sige po. Let's ask Ma'am Arlene Barrientos. Ma'am Arlene, are you here with us po? And some of you are experiencing technical difficulties because of the typhoon, probably. Parang naglandfall na ata. Parang umuulan nga rin dito, but light shower lang. By department or by group? Ah, I see, Sir Joselito. So, that means by batch sila. Yan. Thank you so much, sir. Mas maganda by batch, mas hands-on ka and mas makakatulong ka in terms of their concerns. So, in a certain project or task. Yan. Okay, how else do you coach your team members? One-on-one every 6 months. This is a good strategy for coaching. Individual coaching. Okay, wow. You really have to have a um approved program for this. Kasi it takes a lot of time to do it. I'm not even sure if you're a huge company, individual coaching is possible. So you'll probably have to have an approved program for this kasi baka konti lang yung time. But if konti lang naman yung members ng organization, then this is certainly a good way to do it. Individual coaching. The results are the best with individual coaching. Okay. If it's something more serious, individual would be great. Oo. If that employee subordinate is really lacking in terms of competency, marami kang kailangang program for that. Not only refresher training, hands-on training talaga. Be interactive and democratic. Make it private and confidential, especially in grievances. Thank you so much, Sir June. Interactive yung coaching. So that person would give input as well, not just you. It's not spoon feeding. So magre-research din siya during the process. Okay, nice coaching strategy. I only manage small number of people lang. Okay. Hi, ma'am. Do performance and individual coaching. Okay. Do performance and individual coaching every semester. Every semester. I coach the foreman or lead man. Then they instruct the workers. Okay. Good supervision technique. Thank you, Sir Caesar. Monthly assessment. Oh, wow. Okay. So, yes, exactly, Sir Emerson. Before you conduct coaching, assessment muna. Then, of course, from the assessment, you would see kung saan dun yung pinaka-weakness niya. And you can start working that skill together. Sometimes, if marami kausap, nagiging chaotic ang discussion. If not well managed. So, certainly, if this is the concern, then try to divide them by batch na lang po. Separate per workplace. But yung batches, based on evaluation and assessment, hopefully, same sila ng concern. For example, this batch's concern would be about working on troubleshooting. And then another naman is presentation. Another batch. Hopefully, para hindi siya maging chaotic, same yung problem nila or yung concerns nila by batch. Separate per workplace coaching during toolbox meetings on safety. Yan. Separate per workplace coaching. I see. Oo nga. Based on the setting, workplace setting as well. So these are the different coaching strategies that you can make use of. Please read the chat box so we can learn from one another at the same time. Yan. Highlighting different strategies for coaching in terms of assessment, supervision through delegation of tasks kay Sir Caesar. You can do so individually, sometimes by group. Very nice. If hindi kaya sa time, by group. Pero pag by group, same yung concern nila. Okay, by semester. Yan. Another is interactive dapat. Oo nga naman. So, hindi naman siya dapat spoon feeding lang. Dapat mag-research din sila how they can help themselves. Yan. Develop organizational savvy by being collaborative, sharing successful strategies for the others to make things at ease and unsuccessful strategies for the others to avoid the same difficulties. Thank you so much, Sir Terence Mercado. Pag merong bagong employee, we do orientation and discuss about the rules of company and kung ano ang mga dapat gawin sa working site. Yun. Thank you so much. Thorough discussion about the rules of the company and how to do it exactly. Pero Sir Nante, sometimes po, marami din naman tayong magagaling na employees, right? So maybe they would say, alam na nila to, they don't need a refresher training. So when they say that, we can we it's our responsibility as supervisors to still demonstrate it to them. Then we ask them to explain it back to us kung paano gawin yung process, and after we ask them to demonstrate it. So kahit magaling na sila, they still have to do or undergo that process. Our team have monthly dinner where we can discuss our team's performance and others. Huddle and get together. So, oo nga naman, right? So, one way of determining their weaknesses and strengths is through getting to know them better by communicating with them from time to time. Thank you, ma'am or Sir Chris. Yeah, not sure po how to address you, but thank you for your insight. So, are there any questions, everyone, before we end the webinar? While waiting for your responses, I'd like to invite you to visit our website, our email addresses, and our social media account on Facebook for more trainings and updates. Okay, if you no longer have any questions, please turn on your camera. so we can have the photo op. Okay. Yes, stay safe, everyone, and please be vigilant. Certificates will be available within an hour. Okay, let's have the first batch first. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, another batch. 3, 2, 1, smile. Thank you so much for your for your participation during the webinar, and I hope you all stay safe. Have a very good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, ma'am.
Good night, ma'am. Good night, Sir Randy.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, guys.
Your personal development matters the most from where you are right now. Bring your career into new heights with our affordable and quality in-demand virtual training programs designed just for you. Give your career a boost with a course or a training from Stellar Training Consultancy Services and join thousands of professionals from different walks of life in a learning and development session that fascinates you, motivates you, challenges you to learn new things that you'll use forever in a career you'll love. Find the right training for you today here at Stellar Training Consultancy Services, bringing excellence to professionals.